Welcome to Earthtide Studios. I'm Zach Knight, and in today's video we are looking at 3 kick-ass reverse vocal tips for your productions. Reverse vocals are used in many different styles of music, and in this video I'm going to run through 3 different tips to help you add some spice to your productions. We also have a free vocal production course that teaches you the basics of recording, editing, and mixing your vocals. If you want that, just click the link below. But for now, let's look at those vocals. So we're in Cubase and I'm ready to show you tip number 1. Now, this technique is reversing the first syllable of a word or a line into itself, and it gives you that sort of big sort of crescendoing into a line that is pretty commonly used in a lot of different songs and styles, you know, pop, trap, hip hop, rock, metal. You can use it on a clean sung vocal, you can use it on an aggressive vocal, you can use it on a whole stack of vocals, or just one. I'm going to show you just one vocal for now. Let's have a listen to what the vocal itself sounds like in the song.
I know I gotta earn you back. I know the shit I said was whack. I know the times it got so.
So this is like an emo, trap, kind of pop punk style song. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to reverse the first part of the first word into itself. So I've got something pre-prepared here. So what I've done is, and I'll show you how I would do it normally, is I've actually bounced this vocal, this whole vocal with all of the processing on it, down to here to this track here. And I've actually just cut the very start of the vocal, and I'll show you what that sounds like just on its own, and it's literally just going to sound like It doesn't sound special at all because it's literally just the main vocal cut with all the processing on it. So what you're going to do to be able to get this effect is make yourself a new track like I have here, make it a stereo track, and in Cubase you want to right click on the file, select process and go to reverse, and reverse that particular vocal. Now it's just going to be the first syllable reversed. Sounds pretty weird, but that's kind of cool because we are going for weird, and that's what reverse vocal stuff usually does. So in this particular case, what I've done is I've actually loaded up an instance of Valhalla Vintage Reverb. Now you can do pretty much any reverb to do this. I just like Vintage Reverb because it sounds kind of cool. I've got this currently setting running on the Vox Plate setting. I have changed the color on this one to the 1980s color because I wanted to, you know, give it a little bit more of a slight different kind of tone going on there versus the full modernized, now sound, which is a bit brighter. You could also use the 1970s style sound as well if you wanted to have a real like filtered or downsampled kind of sound, or you could just do filtering with another plugin on the effect after the fact. So I've put no pre-delay on here, and I've set the decay at 4 seconds because I want to have a big, long reverse vocal in. You can set this down pretty low. I probably wouldn't go any lower than 1 second because you can also just cut the actual waveform of the reverse vocal to reduce the sound, like reduce the length of that reverse vocal. Now I'll show you what it sounds like right now. If we just hit that play, and you can hear that there's that delay going on there. So what we're going to do now is we are going to select, make sure you're on the grid as well. Select an area to make sure that you've got the full length of the reverb decay. And then I'm going to go to edit. We're going to go to render in place. I'm going to make sure the settings show up to a full 4 bars because I want to have a full 4 bars in this particular case. And now we're going to render the track. And what this is doing is it's actually processing the reverb onto that vocal. And we're going to end up having a full stereo track with that big reverb tail. So I'll bring the waveform up so we can see it a bit more. And as you can see, that reverb tail goes all the way over to here. But right now, and what it'll do is it'll actually mute. You can select to mute the original track. So we'll just leave that out now. And we'll hear this reverse vocal, and I'll just make sure it's still going to the same bus. We'll have a listen to it, and as you can see, it's got a big long decay. Doesn't really sound very special yet, but here's the cool part. Now what we want to do is we want to right-click on that rendered vocal, go process and reverse. And now we're actually going to have that first syllable reversing into itself. So now it's just a matter of making sure that you line up the point where you want to end the vocal reverse, that is, with the start of the actual line itself. So what I've done is, I'll just quickly show you that again. I've taken this main vocal here and I'm just dragging it along to the left. And you can see here, this is the part of the vocal where it sort of gets to the crescendo. I'm dragging that over to have it start just before the vocal. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fade out at the end, just a little bit of that vocal. And then this is the part where you can decide how much reverse vocal you really want to have. So I'll show you what it sounds like now with the whole big long reverb.
I know I gotta earn you back. I know that.
It's pretty cool. But in the context of the mix, you might find that that's quite long. So what we'll do is we'll just put the mix up. We'll mute some of these other vocals and we'll have a listen to how it sounds in the context of the mix.
I know I gotta earn you back. I know this shit.
In my opinion, I think it sounds like it needs to be a bit shorter. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring it over here just to a bar, and I'm going to do a little bit of a fade in beforehand, and we'll have a listen to what that sounds like now.
I know I gotta earn you back. I know this.
It's pretty cool. Moving on to tip number 2, I'm going to show you how to make that reverse vocal coming into that first syllable there, that first word, sound a little bit cooler and a little bit more special. There's a lot of different ways that you can approach this, but I'm going to give you a few tips on how to make a sort of scattered kind of vocal. And there's 2 different ways we can go about this. The first thing I'm going to do, however, is I'm going to print a new reverse vocal, because in this particular case, I wanted to change up the reverb. So we've still got Valhalla Vintage Verb going on here. I've still got the Vox plate setting here. The coloration's the same. However, I've changed the mode to chorus space. Still got the same amount of decay. I just wanted to have something that had a kind of different kind of build. As you can see, it's got a slower echo build here. It's got a slower kind of attack, and there's a lot of, chorus modulation happening. So let's have a listen to what that reverb sounds like right now. This is just going to be with that first reverse part of the syllable. As you can hear, it comes in with a slower attack and the reverb comes in a little bit weirder. So, we're obviously going to change this up and we're going to see what that sounds like. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to render this one again. Now, I happen to know that the render settings are exactly the same as they were before, so I'm actually going to go render with current settings. But if you wanted to, you could adjust the render settings to make sure it matched what you needed in your song. I'm going to print that effect now onto the vocal, and it will have that reversed vocal reverb on there. We're going to mute this one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to reverse this vocal straight away, because I already know that that's going to make it sound great. We're going to bring it over here to the session, to the actual main vocal itself. We're going to reverse back the end of it there. Come and bring it over. We'll leave the tail, like this, the tail of the reverb quite long on this. And we'll have a listen to what that sounds like now with the main vocal coming in. And I'll put the actual effects on the main vocal so that we hear what they sound like.
I know I gotta earn you back.
It's pretty cool. It's definitely got some kind of nice modulation going on in there. But now we're going to look at actually scattering that vocal. So there's a few different ways that you can do that. First thing we're going to do is we're going to use a stock Steinberg Cubase plugin. We're actually just going to use AutoPan. Your DAW should have this. And if it doesn't, you can always just get some different plugins that do this as well. We're going to set it to sync. It'll actually sync to the song. And I'm going to change the rate to 1/4. So that's just going to mean that for every beat, there'll be 4 repetitions going on there, for every bar, that is. You can change the different, panning. If you like, you can go with a triangle or a sine wave or a pulse, or you can go with a randomized kind of different one, depending on what you press on it, it'll change it to different kind of panning. I personally like either the sine wave or the triangle. Let's go with the triangle. And what we're going to do is we're going to push the width all the way, and we're actually going to smooth out that as well. So it will just be a little bit less over the top with the panning going on there. Now let's have a listen to what's going on with that reverse vocal coming in.
I know I gotta earn you.
So the first thing you notice there is that reverse vocal is coming in and it's scattering left, right, left, right, left, right as it comes in. And if you're putting this on a large group of vocals, it can be really cool, a nice kind of effect. It'll make something sound, really over the top and really sort of pushing into another, another part of the song. So quite useful. What I would also do in this particular case, if you are worried about it having too much build up, you can also put some EQ after it to filter out that vocal. We'll probably filter out a little bit of the low end to about 200, and we'll filter out some high end as well to say, let's go 2500 as well. I'll leave the slope on the high end at 12, but I'll leave the slope on the low end at 18. Let's have a listen to what that sounds like now.
I know I gotta earn you.
So that's definitely going to make it sit a little bit nicer in the mix. But if you do want to have that scattered effect more obvious, just adjust your filtering, and then you can go from there. We'll have a listen to the context of the song with that now.
I know I gotta earn you back.
So it's quite subtle, but it's definitely something that's kind of, bringing a bit of coolness in there as well. If you wanted to make it a little bit more over the top, you could adjust the filtering or just remove it altogether like this.
I know I gotta earn you back.
And that's a really cool way to be able to get a kind of scattered vocal with that reverse going on there as well. Regarding the second tip, there is another way that you can do that as well. You can use a stereo delay with a ping pong to achieve that sort of scattered, bouncy kind of reverb going on there, reverse vocal going on there. But you can use a stereo ping pong delay to achieve that kind of scattered reverse vocal going on there. In this particular case, I've pulled up H delay by Waves. I've selected ping pong. Let's go with a 35% wet vocal. I'll turn off the analog filtering on there. We'll make it a quarter note and decent amount of feedback, but we'll actually filter that vocal down. Maybe let's go, 2K and 200 hertz and put it on lo-fi. And we'll have a listen to how that's doing the ping pong going on there to this vocal here. It's definitely achieving it. I would say that I think the auto pan is far more prominent. If you wanted a more subtle effect, you can use delay to do this. Obviously you can also pump up the wetness of the delay. You can turn the output of the delay up as well if you wanted to, achieve that more scattered kind of sound, more obvious with the delay. But this is just another way to be able to do kind of pretty much the same thing. But you might have a stereo ping pong delay. You might not have an auto pan. So this is just another way that you can do it. Moving on to tip number 3, I'm going to show you how to make a really cool ghostly vocal where you've got a whole vocal line or phrase reversing in and cascading in on itself across a section. This works really well in slow vocal sections. This is sort of like a medium-paced vocal, so it definitely does work in the scope of the song. And I'm going to show you what that sounds like and then how to make it. So we've actually got this in the song at the start of the actual song itself, and I'll just turn it up a little bit so that you can hear what it sounds like a little bit more prominently. Let's have a quick listen.
I know I gotta earn you back. I know the shit I said was whack. I know the times it goes so fast. But baby, will you hold my hand and laugh? I know I gotta earn you back.
So at the start there, that vocal is actually reversing in on itself, and every single word is actually being reversed into the main vocal, which is, in this particular case, I've filtered it, so it kind of sounds a little bit more radio-esque, but definitely with that sort of telephonic kind of sound. But, you know, obviously that reverse vocal technique is very cool. So what I've done up here is we've rendered the whole vocal without the effects, but just the whole vocal itself. And we've got this ready here for processing. So I'll just show you what that sounds like before we do any reverse stuff on the vocal.
I know I gotta earn you back. I know the shit I said was whack.
Nice and clean. There's processing on there. It's heavily tuned because that's what the artist wanted for this particular song. But we've definitely got that vocal there ready for processing. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select this whole section of the vocal, and we're going to bring another 4 bars at the back of the vocal, and then we're going to put our reverb on. Now, in this particular case, I'm using Valhalla Vintage Verb again, and I've changed it up a little bit. I'm using, this is Sanctuary mode, and I've got this running with a 2.5 millisecond pre-delay, and the actual decay is only 2.5 seconds. Because this vocal has every single word reversing into itself, and because this actual vocal itself is a bit more medium paced, I don't want to have the decay too long, because otherwise the whole thing is just going to be completely washed out with reverb, and the effect is going to kind of be lost a little bit. So what we'll do now is we're going to right click on that vocal, and we're going to reverse the whole thing, and we'll have a listen to what it sounds like with just the reverb. It sounds pretty weird, honestly. Reverse vocals often do sound weird when they've been reversed and nothing has been done to them in terms of the desired effect that you're after. So what I'm going to do now is we are going to actually, again, render this vocal. But in this particular case, I'm actually going to adjust some of the rendering that we've got here and just check the render settings. And I think we're going to make this second-wise. Actually, you know what? Let's just do a 4-bar render on this one. So we're going to render that vocal now. And that's going to print that whole reverb onto the vocal and reverse it in. And we'll end up with that fully printed vocal right here. Mute that one. And bring this vocal up here. And now get rid of that vocal. So now all we have is the printed reversed vocal. So have a listen. It's achieved having that reverse vocal. So what we're going to do now is we're going to reverse that whole vocal back again. And now here's the most important part, is that you need to make sure that the vocal itself lines up with the start of the line that you're actually going to be reversing into. Now, I know that I've set this to finish on the grid. So what that means is I should be able to line it up perfectly to a bar, and then it should play, and we'll play the main vocal with it, and it should come straight in and fit in time.
I know I gotta earn you back. I know the shit I said was whack. I know the times have gone so fast, but baby.
So that is now a reversed full line that works with the main line, and every single word reverses into it. But there's still more that we can do to this vocal. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to put a little bit more reverb on using the same reverb, but we're going to dial the mix down to about, let's say, we're going to go 15%. We really don't want to have too much extra reverb added onto that there. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to start this tail of the main vocal reversing into itself to start at the start of the bar. And we're also going to take the end of the reverse vocal and bring it over and make sure that it reverses out so that it finishes before the main vocal actually finishes. So now let's have a listen to what that sounds like now.
I know I gotta earn you back. I know the shit I said was whack. I know it's
So it's pretty cool, but I still think that we need to do more to make this effect more special. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Camel Crusher. This is a plugin that can add distortion and compression and filtering, and it's a nice way of saturating something. So I've got it on the Annihilate setting, and I've just adjusted the compression, and I've left the distortion off, left it off fat mode, and the mix is fully wet. Let's have a listen to what it's doing now. It's kind of just really bringing up anything that's too soft and clamping down anything that's too hard and giving it a bit more saturation. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to put Decapitator on this vocal. This is one of my favorite plugins. We're going to have it 100% mixed. We're making the tone a little bit brighter, cutting a bit of the low end out and driving it at 2. Let's have a listen. So Decapitator is just really saturating that vocal and making it sound a little bit more over the top. The next thing we're doing is we're adding something kind of cool and trippy. I'm actually using the Kilohertz Transgate, and this is going to add, basically, it's like a gated kind of sound that's actually going to snap the vocal in and out based upon the settings that I've got here. I've got the mix for this one running at 35%. And as you can see, this is the pattern that I've got going on at the moment. This is going to sound pretty weird. Pretty weird, but I kind of like it. So now that we've got that going, the next thing I'm going to do is I am, no surprise, going to filter this vocal because it's way too present in the mix. So I'm filtering it with FabFilter Pro Q2, rolling off some low end at 350 and some higher end at 2.5, but I'm pumping it up just a little bit with a little bit more mid-range there. Let's see what that sounds like now. Much more palatable. Now, with that main vocal, let's see what that sounds like.
I know I gotta earn you back. I know the shit I said was whack. I know the times have gone so fast. But baby, will you hold my hand and last?
It's pretty cool. It's still too loud in the mix though, so let's bump that down by, say, 4 dB, and we'll play the whole song and have a listen to what it sounds like.
I know I gotta earn you back. I know the shit I said was whack. I know the times have gone so fast. But baby, will you hold my hand and last? I know I gotta.
There you go. Pretty cool tip. Definitely usable in many different places. As you can see in this particular song, it actually works really well at the start of the song. It doesn't necessarily work at this point in the song here. I would put it obviously at the start, which is what I did in the production, but you've got a lot of different ways that you can use a technique like that. So I hope that you like it, because I do. So there you have it. Those are 3 tips that you can use to add some flavor to your vocal productions. I personally really love tip number 3. I think it's super cool, but I'd love to hear what you do to make your vocal mix special. Don't forget, we've got that vocal production course that's available, but for now, take it easy.
Bye!